Hi, Brandon Monroe here, and you're listening to the Bernie Breakdown. While the racing might not have been the most exciting at Bristol over the weekend, everything that happened on the track sure does give us a lot to talk about. I'm Brandon Monroe, and alongside me is Mark Chavez, and let's start off with Thursday night, in the Truck Series.
You're excused since it happens once a year.
Yes, once a year. It used to be twice when we were going to Kentucky still, but we don't do that anymore. So let's start with Thursday night. Trucks rolled in for their first race of the round at 8. Surprise pole sitter Derek Kraus was on the front row there, and he led a little bit in the beginning of the race. But it did seem like from pretty early on, you were going to have to beat one of the KBM trucks, Chandler Smith being the guy. He led a race-high 89 laps, and pit strategy is really
also,
what did him in.
Won both stages as well.
Yes, also won both stages. So very good points night, even though he could not capitalize and pick up the win and punch his ticket into the Final Four. That went to the guy that we picked in our Truck Series round of 8 preview. Now I'm going to give you credit for that as well, even though you didn't pick him to win the race.
Yes.
I went first. Ty Majeski, he did it. He finally got his first career win, punching his ticket to the Final Four at Phoenix in a couple of weeks. I think we felt this one coming for a while. It's not really surprising, especially given the type of track. Majeski, very good short track racer, and just couldn't have come at a better time for the kid.
Yeah, no, just the only time I think your first win, or a win in general, can be better is come Phoenix when you're in the Final Four, something that Ty Majeski now can hope to accomplish as he has punched his ticket in, racing for a championship in his first full-time season. Has had a lot of speed in the playoffs so far, finally capped it off with a win, and now doesn't have to worry about anything for the next, 3 years, until we finally get to Phoenix for the championship for the Truck Series, and he will get to go race for one there, and I expect him to be a contender.
Mm-hmm. I mean, now Phoenix is one of those tracks where it's like, is it a short track? Is it, its own mile track? It's one of those weird ones that doesn't have like a distinct category that you would put it in. But I think Majeski's driving style does fit into it. So I think he is definitely somebody to watch out for when they get there, like you said, in 3 years, because that's how the truck schedule works at this point in the season.
I mean, not from a tire wear perspective, but from, I feel like, a general race feel, Richmond is similar, not the same, obviously, but similar, and Majeski was very strong there. Don't remember off the top of my head. The only other track I think they go to that really is maybe similar would be Gateway, since the trucks don't go to Loudon. I don't remember how Majeski did it. Actually, no, I do remember. He was running okay, had damage, and it's when they tried to strap the deck lid of the truck down, and NASCAR said, nah, we're not going to do that. Which, again, I talked about it then, but credit to them, at least they tried. But it was pretty... And we saw this throughout the weekend. Tires didn't matter. Now, he didn't get to the lead on tires. We had people that pitted relatively late, and they just never could get through the field. It just wasn't a lot of passing. And I mean, that's pretty typical of Bristol once the high line is the preferred line. It's just so hard to make a pass there. And we saw it throughout the weekend, tires not mattering. But it was a pretty clean race, certainly cleaner than the other 2 races. Even for all the playoff guys, just running through our 7 guys that are now remaining for the final 3 spots. We already mentioned Chandler Smith, won both stages, did finish 9th. Good points day with the stage wins. Currently sits 24 points above the cut line. Zane Smith, one of the 2 playoff guys that had to start at the back of the field, couldn't really make his way through the field and was certainly behind throughout the entire period. The other guy who was in the back of the field, John Hunter, but used some strategy, stayed out, got to the lead, fell to second, but still hung on to second, and ultimately finished there. Only got a single stage point, but it's enough to have him currently sitting 21 points above the cut line. Stuart Friesen is the last guy that is currently in right now, finished 7th, but also finished 2nd in both stages, so a pretty big race for him. Currently sits 9 above the cut line. First guy out is John Hunter Nemechek, finished 12th with 3 stage points. Similar to Zane Smith, had to start at the back of the field. Did manage to work his way up more, but then they were one of the group of trucks that pitted under the last time anyone pitted, and they just couldn't really make any ground up from there. Currently sits 9 behind the cut line. The next guy is Christian Eckes, who finished 8th with 12 stage points. So pretty solid day for him. Currently sits 13 points behind the cut line. Grant Enfinger finished 4th with 6 stage points. He was obviously up there as he had stage points, but did not see him finishing 6th. Another typical Grant Enfinger finish, or finishing 4th, I mean. Currently sits 15 points behind the cut line, and in 8th place is Ben Rhodes, finished 18th with 7 stage points, is now 18 behind the cut line. For me, the big takeaway, one, with the points real quick. One, Zane Smith, certainly not the most speed, but they pulled the right strategy, got second, and is still in a good spot headed to Talladega. And the other one is Ben Rhodes, man. Already 18 back of Stuart Friesen. Obviously a gap that can be made up, but with the speed they've had, it just feels like he's already in a must-win situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Talladega being Talladega in a couple weeks for these guys, that could turn everything upside down. He could definitely end up in a must-win situation if he gets wrecked in that race, or if he misses the wrecks and has a good finish, he could be in a pretty good spot coming into Homestead. But I think out of all these guys, in terms of how they've been running as of late, he's probably the one that I'd be the most surprised if he did make it to the championship for. Like you said, the speed's just not there with that team right now. He's being outperformed by his teammates in Majeski and Eckes. I mean, even Matt Crafton on Thursday night, he had a 5th place finish. So not a good look if you're Ben Rhodes. I think they're definitely in some trouble. Talladega is going to be very big for that team.
Yeah, he was. I don't remember exactly where he was prior, but I do know he was. I think he might have actually even been ahead of Friesen to start the round. I'd have to go back and look. But for him to now already be 18 back is just not what he was looking to do.
No.
Yeah, Rhodes started in 4th, only 4 points up on Friesen, but still inside. Now sits 18 behind Friesen. And unlike John Hunter, who I'm sure it does not, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter if it ultimately causes him to miss Phoenix either way, but he at least had to overcome something to begin with. He was in the back. It just was hard to pass. They wound up getting up there, but also had a bad pit stop because he didn't even qualify, wrecked at the end of practice. It didn't have his primary truck. Whereas with Zane, they found a leak, I think. He didn't qualify, but he still got to practice. It was still his primary truck. For John Hunter, it was not. He had to, he wrecked in practice. They had to get the truck ready in a pretty quick turnaround. Didn't get to qualify, started in the back. So I'm sure he wishes he was still inside the cut line, but despite all that, only being 9 back with the day that Friesen had second and 2 stages and the 7th, just a great day. But with Ben Rhodes, I agree. He's just, they've just been already felt like the slowest. I think honestly, other than maybe Enfinger, because we've already seen more speed out of Enfinger in the last 4 races than we had really at any individual race all year. But maybe you could have him ahead of Enfinger, but the only guy I think you would have slower than Rhodes going into the playoffs was Crafton. Rhodes just had the benefit of a couple wins and a bunch of stage wins from earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick look here at the points too. I mean, in terms of the guys that are out right now, I think, from being comfortable even in their situation of being out, like John Hunter Nemechek right now. Yeah, he's 9 back, but never mind the fact that I think John Hunter could go out there and win a race like, say, Homestead. Stuart Friesen, he's kind of similar to Joey Logano, where you don't know what you're going to get with that team on a week-to-week basis. Like, he ran great at Bristol, but it would not shock me comes Homestead if they unload and he runs, 15th
20th, 15th, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so,
Dega's going to paint a pretty clear picture, I feel. Once we get there, and I mean, it's any of these guys could win, and someone that we didn't see making it through could then punch their way through, or it could just be the complete opposite, basically. And someone that we felt was pretty safe, Zane Smith, Chandler Smith, Stuart Friesen. Stuart Friesen's not safe, but at least in contention, could go into Homestead and have a situation where they have to win.
Yeah, and Talladega will definitely determine that here in a couple of weeks. just going through some of these finishers. I know Derek Kraus, I mentioned he did sit on the pole, did bring it home 6th, so a strong run for him.
And although
Crafton
two of
fifth.
these for Kraus, by the way, Kraus actually has 4 career poles. Now, 2 of them were at Knoxville, but he has shown the ability to qualify pretty well. Also led 27 laps this race, which is the second most of his career. Certainly still, I feel like they're a step back of being like a playoff contender, but he is improving. Still 0 top 5s on the season. This was tied with Knoxville for the best finish of his season.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say with Kraus, like if we're going to talk about the future in terms of him being a playoff driver, I mean, I think part of what can determine that is obviously the landscape of the Truck Series next year. I mean, there could be a huge shakeup in terms of drivers.
I mean, there is going to be a shakeup for sure with KBM leaving. That there's 2 trucks in here that are, at least as of right now, we don't know where they're going. They are obviously, I mean, 3 trucks in terms of playoff trucks, because Corey Heim also, that truck is in the playoffs.
Right.
But in terms of drivers, Chandler Smith and John Hunter both currently drive for KBM, and we have no indication of what their plans next year are going to look like.
Well, I mean, with John Hunter, it sounds like he does have a Toyota contract. So, I don't know if he's going to be in the Truck Series or not.
I mean, no, sure, we know what manufacturer, but in terms of where they're going to race, we don't really have any idea. I think we both agree that it's based on what Toyota has. Xfinity's probably more likely, unless they. I know everyone keeps talking about ThorSport being the like Toyota truck team, but they don't need Toyota. I mean, they were not a Toyota 2 years ago.
No.
So unless Toyota's willing to throw a bunch of money at them, I don't think they're willing to just boot all these guys out of their rides for the Toyota development guys.
I really think it's more likely they invest in Stuart Friesen's team at this point, because I do feel like it's easier to get somebody in there that you want. You're not going to have to boot anybody out. I mean, Beckett seems pretty good in there. I don't know if they'd want to move Majeski. Maybe Crafton hangs it up. And, we've heard rumors about Ben Rhodes, although it does sound like he is probably going to be coming back to that ride next year by the sound of it. But we'll wait and see on that. It's just going to be hard to, even if you throw the money at ThorSport, they might have to dismantle what they have, and I don't know if they're going to want to do that.
Yeah, no, I could see Toyota, since it's at least feels like, or maybe it was reported, I don't remember, but Toyota had a hand in Eckes splitting the ride with Enfinger last year. But obviously, like, I think there is 0% chance ThorSport kicks Kraft into the curb. He could retire. That's obviously an possibility. But I think there's 0% chance they kick him to the curb. Majeski, I mean, he is not Toyota's MO for drivers. He is 27, would be 28 next year. Just actually, he already is 28.
Yeah, he turned 28 in August, I think.
Just turned 28. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I mean, he just won a race. ThorSport, I don't think he's going to want to kick him out. So I agree. I think Friesen's team makes more sense. Looking at a few other guys real quick on here. I know you mentioned Crafton, but this was also his first top 5 since Darlington. Which at first instinct, you're like, well, that was like a couple weeks ago. Except the trucks didn't go to Darlington a couple weeks ago. This is his first top 5 since Darlington in the spring. I mean, and even before this, he was far closer to making it into the round of 8 than I expected him to be. So I don't know what they found. I think they had a crew chief change relatively recently, but it certainly there's not Matt Crafton of old for sure, but he is definitely better than he was the first part of the season. One other person that we have not mentioned yet, but certainly deserves a lot of credit. Parker Kligerman brought home that truck in 3rd. This is the most top 5s and top 10s he's now had in a truck season since 2012. None of those full time, obviously, but he's run a similar-ish number of races every year almost. So it's not. It's still a sign that he's done really well. I really, really hope they can find some funding to be full time next year. It just he's been solid. He would be easily in the playoffs, easily in the hunt. They probably need a little bit more to be truly championship competitive. But with what I've seen out of that truck, if they just got to Phoenix, I think they could give it an honest try. A couple other guys I want to mention. Caden Honeycutt, 13th. Just his 6th Truck Series race, first top 20. So a really solid finish there. I didn't have her down, but I mean, Haley Deegan did finish 14th, so it's another top 15. Still definitely been a better second half of the season. Still not enough of improvement with a new crew chief that I'm sitting here and I'm going, yes, she could be a contender next year. It certainly, I feel like, supports the idea that the first half of the season is that's not what she could do, but I still think, like, based on what we've seen, it feels like Truck Series winner, period, is like the absolute top of what I expect right now. And I don't think that's likely either. Last guy, Bailey Curry, his 6th career top 15, just their 2nd truck start of the season. So a solid finish for him as well.
Yeah, I think that really does it in terms of the people to spotlight that had a good run. Matt Benedetto, I'm sure we'll talk about this when we get to all the fantasy picks and the betting and stuff, but just did something happen to him? I'm going to be completely honest. I did not see him the whole race.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I straight up can't. So
I was expecting a good run out of that team, and they definitely had a letdown performance there. Pretty disappointing. Another disappointment here. Rajah Caruth. There wasn't really a clear shot of what happened. He was running decent. The camera work couldn't tell if he just locked it up and spun into a wreck that was happening in front of him, or if he got hit. Did sound like on the radio he might have locked it up. Sounded like maybe, I think that was the one with the spotter. Was that what happened? Where there might have been a miscommunication there, and Rajah didn't see the wreck in time, and that caused that issue to happen. But very unfortunate for him. He was looking decent. I think he was running around the top 15, qualified 14th. So he was running okay before he had those issues. So definitely a bit of a disappointment there. Hopefully, whenever the next time he is in this truck or in the Xfinity Series, whenever his next race is, if he has any more coming up this year, it could be a little bit better. But hate to see that for a young driver. You definitely want to just go out there and run laps, and he didn't really have a chance to do that. So unfortunate. And I think one more, Josh Rayum had a concussion.
Yes.
In that wreck. He backed it into the wall, or maybe not that specific wreck, but in a wreck, he did, back it into the wall, and very unfortunate there for Josh. Hope he gets better soon, and you hate to see any injuries in racing, and second documented concussion this year, joining Kurt Busch, so not very good. That's something I think we all think might happen more often, especially when you hear stories about drivers and their testing. So
other thing is, I don't think that they're in the Cup Series is possible. At least compared to the last couple years. I don't think overall they're getting concussed more than 20 years ago. I think just very similar to football, a lot of groups are taking it more seriously.
I mean, this is only the second, documented one this year. So
it's so funny just because, like, you have two, and if we get a third, people are going to start talking about concussions and how big of a problem it is all over again. And not that I disagree that it is, but it's just so funny compared to football, where these guys get concussed like it's crazy, and everyone's just like, well, whatever. It's just,
that's football.
That's football.
I would agree. Moving on to the Xfinity Series, which was Friday night, and this was a cutoff race for the playoffs for them. And for a little while there, it looked like, hey, maybe we could have a big shakeup. Sheldon Creed was looking really good, and then things seemed to turn his way when Landon Castle had issues, and then they went back in the other direction when Noah Gragson got into Ty Gibbs. That sent Gibbs up the track, and unfortunately Creed was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and his regular season ends on the hook, just like it has for many races this year for him, unfortunately, and just unfortunate. I mean, Landon Castle's mechanical problems opened the door where maybe he wouldn't have even needed to win the race to get in, and then just very soon after that, it was all done for Creed.
Yeah, I think it was honestly a lot more intense than I think even the picture that you painted was. Creed stays out or took two. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but he got the lead from that. and then held off whoever it was behind him at the time for a while. They ultimately got past him, and then Ty Gibbs was trying to get past him for second, and that was another 10-plus lap battle. Landon Castle suddenly goes off the track with a broken hub, and now it looks like all hell's about to break loose. Creed's just barely ahead of Sieg in points at that point. And it just looks like we're going to have an intense battle, and as I don't even know if Castle was in the garage yet. That's how quick everything unraveled. Gregson, bumped into the back of Ty Gibbs, and it just ended any shot at Creed. And we went from Creed looking like he was going to race his way in to then Castle's issue, and maybe we're going to have a battle anyway between Creed and Sieg, to Sieg effectively being locked in, all in a matter of 15 laps. From Creed leading,
it was crazy.
From Creed, actually, I probably figured that out. From Creed leading, let's see. The last lap that Sheldon Creed led was 1:24. He then crashed on. It was literally quicker than that. He crashed on 1:28. So it was literally 5 laps from him leading to him being out of the race.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I wanted Sieg to get in. I was rooting for Sieg to get in. I wanted it to be more exciting than this. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Ryan Sieg did too, mentioning obviously he's happy to get in. He did not love that he was in a position then where they just kind of, what's best for the team was to just ride around. Sieg had a lot of speed this weekend. I think he could have maybe challenged for a top 5 when it was all said and done, but they did the smart thing, rode around once they were basically secured a spot, and Ryan Sieg now in the playoffs over Landon Castle. Definitely feel bad for Landon Castle when I'm going to be pretty surprised if this is not his one shot. And I'm sure he knows that.
I would definitely agree, especially with the sponsorship issues that Voyager, was running into. I don't think he is going to get another, opportunity. I mean, sounds like even Daniel Hemrick with how bad he's run this year.
I mean, I was going to say, I don't think if I'm a prospective sponsor, I don't touch Landon Castle or Daniel Hemrick because, well, Colin definitely feels like they don't have as much speed as they did last year. AJ Allmendinger won the regular season championship.
Yep.
AJ Allmendinger has 23 top 10s in 26 races. He has been great. Not fantastic. He's been the most
consistent driver, I would say, this year.
Oh, it's not even close. Yeah. It's not even close. Mm-hmm. I think his average finish is like a 6.4. And I think the next highest is Gregson, maybe with a 9.3. It's I think it's Gregson. Maybe it's Allgaier. It's one of the two. But he's literally has that almost a 3 position gap on them. So I certainly think the cars are a little bit slower. I also think that they're not that much slower. I think that even with faster cars, I just think with what Qualig has as the company, if they had last year's cars, I still don't think Hemrick or Castle finished top 5 in the regular season standing.
No.
So and at the end of the day, no matter what you might think of Colleague, they are absolutely quicker than Ryan Sieg's cars. So, and they had their issues, but everyone did back there, Sheldon Creed included, and still almost managed to catch up to all of them. Because it wasn't like Sieg was alone and Creed catching him. Give me another 3 weeks, and if you told me it could even happen, we'd have to go check, the racing reference standings. But if Creed was in 3 weeks ahead of all 3 of those guys, Ryan Sieg, Landon Castle, and Daniel Hemrick, in points, I would not be shocked.
No.
So.
I mean, I didn't think there was any chance Sheldon Creed was even going to be in, a position to make it in on points about a month or 2 ago. And he was. And, if it wasn't for Jeremy Clements winning at Daytona, he really would have had a chance to make it in on points. They cleaned it up a lot.
There's a chance that he's not, he might not wreck, because I doubt that he leaves himself in that vulnerable position if the only person he has to worry about catching is Ryan Sieg.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's literally was almost no time. I don't know, because Castle ultimately did not DNF. It's harder for me without actually watching the race to go back and figure out where his issues happened.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, Sheldon had a lot of speed, and he'll be, I hope, back next year. But if Hemrick and
It
Castle are,
sounds like he's going to be back next
if
year.
Hemrick and Castle are not, I would not be surprised. And I mean, I just, especially Hemrick, like Castle's never really had a shot before. This was definitely the best shot of his career, and he ultimately didn't even make the playoffs, so that sucked. Hemrick has had plenty of shots and is not with the top team and ran and finished 10th in the regular season. And in all the stats, he's 10th, basically, or worse. So if this winds up being it for Hemrick, I can't say I am shocked or that he deserves another chance because I'd be lying.
Back to the race, though.
Yeah, I don't even think we've talked about who won the race.
No, we didn't, and we'll set it up here. There's about 30 laps to go or so in the race. Justin Allgaier trying to hold off Noah Gragson tries to thread the needle on some lap cars, gets into the 66. He goes off, spins into the wall, sets up a yellow flag and pit stops, and where it looked like Justin Allgaier was going to be in a good position, he sped on pit road, so he goes all the way back to the end of the longest line. Noah Gragson decided to stay out on old tires, and tire wear wasn't, it didn't have the biggest drop off over the week. There was enough where Brandon Jones was able to reel him back in, but he couldn't pass him.
It was enough where they could keep it close sometimes, but just the high line when it came in dominant. It was 20 laps, by the way, 20 lap run. Yeah, and I mean, Gregson got a good launch. Allgaier's team shot himself in his foot, as they're known to do. I don't know if Allgaier would have got past him. Allgaier had a better car than Brandon Jones, so it is conceivable that they would have got past him. Brandon Jones also ran Noah Gragson very clean. I don't think Allgaier would have wrecked him, but I also don't think Allgaier would have been afraid of giving him a little bit more, especially because I'm pretty sure Gragson wrecked Allgaier here before.
Yeah, in 2020. The COVID race in 2020. First one.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, Gragson now 3 in a row. Maybe a crazy person might think he'll get 4 in a row. Who knows?
Or more,
maybe 5. But either way, a ton of momentum. I mean, it's not like he went out and dominated these races, so I don't think he's going to necessarily continue to go out there and win. But you put yourself in a position to win, and it's going to happen. They've obviously put themselves in a position 3 weeks in a row, maybe more. I at this point can't even remember that. No, I think Daytona. Yeah, Daytona's Daytona. So yeah, 3 weeks in a row, put themselves in position, got a ton of playoff points in that time frame. Not only the 3 wins, I don't remember. He won at least one stage of those. I don't remember if he won any other one. I don't remember if he won any at Darlington. But won at least one. Well, won at least one at Kansas because that's how the race ended. But then also wound up in the last race with, we already mentioned, Ty Gibbs wrecking. That dropped him from 2nd to 4th in points. So that cost him a couple playoff points. Gave some to Justin Allgaier, some to Noah Gragson. Allgaier jumped up to 2nd, Gragson up to 3rd. So, I mean, now Gragson enters the playoffs, I believe, with a 13-point lead on Ty Gibbs for the lead.
Yeah, it does look like it is accurate, and really, I don't think it's going to come back to haunt him. But that, I believe, was a 30-point penalty after his incident at Road America. That is the difference between him finishing 3rd and 2nd in the regular season title, or in the regular season standings. So that is 2 playoff points that he missed out on. Again, I don't think that's going to be an issue, but if it is, it's something to look back on.
Yeah, I don't think it will be either, but he didn't cost him enough to make up the gap. But I mean, when you think about it, his decision at Road America certainly cost him more than just those that penalty. He easily could have finished top 5 in that race.
True.
Yeah, Allgaier is our 3rd seed, Allmendinger our 4th seed, and I think those are probably the four favorites. Josh Berry's probably a step behind Allmendinger. But I mean, I think this is going to be. I think it's probably, in terms of getting to Phoenix, if Riley Herbst got a little bit more speed, just a little bit, I think at that point there are 8 cars that could conceivably maybe need something to go wrong with one of the front 4, but could conceivably make it. Or actually, with Riley Herbst, I guess that would make it 9 cars, because I think with the speed that we've seen at various times of the year, Austin Hill, Brandon Jones, Sam Mayer, all can do it. If Herbst gets a little bit more speed, he could do it. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Hemrick, Sieg, or obviously Jeremy Clements makes it. I think with Talladega, any of them could make it to the round of 8.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just going to be a dogfight there, and none of them have shown anything near the speed at any point this year that you would want them to have to get into the final 8.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. Covered the race, covered the playoff picture there. Any people you want to highlight here in terms of the finishing? I know I got a couple, and I just wanted to shout out this first one because he is an Earnhardt. Jeffrey Earnhardt, 12th place finish there in the 26 car. Good run for him. That team's definitely getting better when I see someone like Jeffrey, because I like Jeffrey, but he's not John Hunter Nemechek. So when he's able to get a solid run like that, that is it's pretty good look for Sam Hunt Racing, and that it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, but I don't even think he qualifies as even the top 2 best or most impressive performances at Bristol. I think one of the first that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's all he'll ever be known as is an Earnhardt.
Bad thing though.
No, not a bad thing, but for someone just not one of the ones that necessarily qualify for impressive performance, but Riley Harris with a 5th now sets a new career high for top 5s in the season with 6. AJ Allmendinger with a 6 now had only 3 races so far this season where he has finished outside the top 10. That is pretty ridiculous. Of those 3, one was Nashville, one was Loudon, one was I'm missing the other one. Oh, one was nope. I already said that. Oh, Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
So his worst finish on the season is 20th at Loudon. What happened? Did he get in a wreck? I don't remember.
Listen, I was there. I might have been a couple beers in at that point, but he was not on the radar there at the beginning. I think he did get into an incident on the front stretch. I think it was like with Brandon Jones.
So yeah, because he finished. He did finish 3 laps down there. Finished 1 lap down at Nashville, and 2 laps down at Charlotte. So has only not completed 6 laps so far this year. If they get to Phoenix, I don't think it's going to be by winning one of the races in the last round. It will be because time and time again, they have just been so dang consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Next guy I have, the next 2 I have, which are, I think, the most impressive performances of the weekend, at least for the Xfinity Series. Stephen Parsons, first career top 10, finished 8th. Second top 10 for Alpha Prime. I think my dream scenario for them, it's not going to happen just because neither of these guys have the funding. But Stephen Parsons, Ryan Ellis, full time in those cars next year, could run top 15 for the standing easily. I'm not going to say easily. Depends on who else is in the series next year.
Yeah. I think they did announce Ellis was going to be back in a part-time schedule.
They did. Yeah, they said I don't remember how many races it was.
I think it was like 15.
I was going to say, I think it was more than this year, I believe.
Yeah.
Other guy, and honestly just had him because I think he had a solid run in both the trucks and the Xfinity Series. Not very often we have people on here twice, honestly, but Bailey Curry brought home 11th, capped off the solid weekend with what in the Xfinity Series is just his 8th career top 15. So solid run for him as well.
Mm-hmm. And I already mentioned Jeffrey. You pretty much covered it in terms of the top 10. Not much else going on there. I mean, obviously, tough breaks for people like Creed, Gibbs, and Castle. And I think that really covers it there. Patrick Emmerling, 27th place finish. He did end up finishing runner-up in the modified race at up in Riverhead.
Yes.
Yeah, the Saturday night. So got to shout out the modified guys. So maybe not his best run at the short track in Bristol, but he did pretty well up in Long Island over the weekend as well. Going to the Cup Series now. We totally had this round nailed, right? In terms of winners.
Sure.
Yeah.
In that you mean no one could have ever possibly seen this kind of thing coming? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we say that, but we did get 2 of the 3.
Listen, when you that is true. But, I mean, first off, Chris Buescher snaps 222 race winless streak. Second all-time between wins. only behind Bill Elliott from the 90s into the 2000s. Just finishes off what has been a completely stunner of a round in more ways than one, and we will go over some of the later ones. But it puts us at 19 winners this season. That includes 2 former champions without wins in Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex Jr., and Ryan Blaney without a win. Plus, honestly, if you told me 19 guys had wins, you probably would have still guessed someone like Eric Almirola won a race.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we are at 19 winners, several guys left that could win that don't have wins. Talladega left, the Roval left. At this point, I will be bitterly disappointed if we don't get to at least 20.
I mean, I feel like Ryan Blaney or Martin Truex Jr. has to win a race, especially with how they run.
Every time, right? And it's literally, I feel like been said all season. Maybe finally the last couple weeks people have stopped. But all season, it feels like it's been, well, at some point, people are going to start winning again. And a couple people have won again, but so few.
Yeah. It's really only been Chase. I mean, you had Larson win a race, and, if it wasn't for the DQ at Pocono, Denny Hamlin would have another one, but it's just been different winner after different winner. It's been insane. And, Chris Buescher, I can't say this was shocking.
Yeah, so
he's had a couple races where he's contended.
When you sit here, if I told you, hey, Eric Jones was going to win at Darlington, you'd be like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. If I told you separately, hey, Bubba Wallace was going to win at Kansas. Well, he had a really good car in the spring, so that's not the most shocking thing. Chris Buescher winning at Bristol, probably more shocking than the other two. But as you mentioned, he's had speed here before in cars worse than this.
Yep.
This is one of his owner/teammates' best tracks. So I'm sure if Buescher needed any help, which he didn't, he would have gotten it. They've had, as an organization, both the 6 and the 17 have had more speed the last month and a half, 2 months. So it's still not like, oh my God, this is the most shocking thing ever. But if I told you that not 1, not 2, but all 3 of those guys were going to win when we started this round after Daytona, I would have been called crazy and it would have been fair.
Yeah.
All 3 of these winners it's shocking. And it's honestly great for the sport. Because you look at these 3, the last 3 weeks, right? These are not even, I think, anywhere in the 3 luckiest wins any of these guys have had. Or any of, and we've had this year, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part with, Jones is that Kyle blew up under yellow.
But then
Eric Jones was still second there, so...
Eric Jones was still second, and guess what? It's not the only race Kyle blew up in this round.
No. This is also true.
So just straight up been a great round. Before this, in the playoff era, so 2014 to now, we had a single winner outside the playoffs win during the playoffs, and being Bubba Wallace last year. We have 3 now. And we're getting to the point where I just don't we can't have that many more because there aren't that many more people who could legitimately win the race.
No, I mean, Talladega is definitely one where you could throw a bunch of names.
Anybody. Basically, that is the only one I think literally anybody Corey LaJoie up could win that race. I still think even at a track like that, Cody Ware, David Reagan
was running third on the white flag at Daytona.
Like Daytona 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Where there were 7 cars that did not even 7 cars that didn't have damage. I mean, I guess it could happen if that happens again.
It can happen again, yeah.
That is true. That is true. But just straight up winning the race without the entire field wrecking. There are still 31 plus, actually 32, because the 16 could certainly win. Beard could win with Gregson in it, so I guess they're a little bit more at Talladega. But yeah, but going into, as you mentioned before, Bristol was a cutoff race, and it, similar to the Xfinity Series, had its excitement. But unlike the Xfinity Series, where the excitement ended right away, this one kind of kept building, and for a while at the end, it looked like it was pretty set, but it certainly wasn't certain.
No, not at all.
Starting off really early in the race, Austin Cindric loses a tire, does not get a caution, which I'm sure we'll talk about that after this.
Yep.
Goes 4 laps down, never recovers any laps, which is not shocking. Bristol, it's incredibly hard because there's almost always people laps down. Never recovers any laps down. Finishes, I think, 6 laps down. Next playoff guy I think that had issues big issues anyway, was Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up just blows a motor. Before this, non-playoff guys, although I guess Bubba does qualify as a playoff guy, even though he was already locked in, the car was. Before this, Bubba Wallace suddenly down pit road, power steering issues. Bubba running fourth, by the way. Fourth or fifth. I think it was fourth, though.
He's in the top five.
Another solid run for him. Comes down to pit road, power steering issues. I think the same lap, the next lap, really close to each other, like literally within a lap. Ty Gibbs then comes down pit road with power steering issues. At some point in this, before this, I think, Ryan Blaney, I don't even know how to describe everything that occurred with Ryan Blaney.
That car was bouncing.
They lost a tire, but it felt like Ryan Blaney even thought something else was wrong. Didn't they lose? They lost a tire on pit road too, didn't they?
Oh, he lost the tire. He came up and hit the wall. Eric Almirola ended up
the tire blew in that. Not he literally lost a tire because that.
No, but then down in the pits, they didn't get the lug tightened. He took off and the wheel fell off. And it's going to be interesting to see what NASCAR does there. I think it should be a penalty. That tire was rolling down pit road and almost hit some of, I believe, it was either Austin Dillon or Martin Truex Jr.'s guys. One of the Bass Pro guys.
I guess I can't tell. I just remember it was Bass Pro Shops.
I know it was a Bass Pro Shop team. Like, I feel like it should be a 4-race suspension, but we will see.
I agree.
Let's see.
I agree 100%. But then they get it fixed. He goes out on track, and something is clearly broken. The back end is dragging, and he just keeps running laps because what else can you really do? He already is a couple laps down. He's pretty safe, not 100% safe though, but pretty safe. Had a really good first round, maybe even the second round. I don't actually remember exactly when this started happening. Mm-hmm. No, this was our very good first stage. I mean, this was towards the end of the second stage. They lose another tire at some point. They come back down. They make an adjustment to the car that I don't know, track bar wedge. I'm not sure, but the goal of it was to basically raise the rear end a couple inches, if even. Goes back out there, and as he still can't run, it got worse. It's literally dragging. He is a roadblock at this point. And I remember at one point he comes down. He's like on the apron trying to get back down the pit road, and you can literally see like the front tire is literally barely touching the ground.
That thing was bouncing like a mechanical bull, man. That thing was going up and down. Like, I don't know what they broke, but that was definitely not a comfortable ride for those lap dudes out there.
Yeah, they then go to pit road. And this actually was before Bubba's issues because he had to run down Bubba and Ty Gibbs when Ty Gibbs was in the garage.
This was actually right at the end of stage 1.
Did he not get any stage points then?
No, he didn't. Because he was up there. He was leading at one point before. I think there was a debris yellow with like Harrison Burton's car or the 15 car. I can't remember which one actually did that. But yeah, this was right before the end of stage 1 because the Almirola spinning, that's when Blaney had his first issue with the tire going down. That was looks like lap 93. So he didn't even get any stage points.
He didn't get any stage points, but we still had enough going in that he was pretty secure. Not 100%. So he's in the garage. Then Bubba Wallace and Ty Gibbs have their power steering issues. Then Martin Truex Jr. has his power steering issues. And so then, of course, before it was just 23-11, so you'd be like, well, maybe, it's just them. But then once Martin Truex Jr. has his, then, of course, it all eyes on Kyle. He's having a pretty strong run. They get through to the end of stage 2, and he is running out there for stage 3, and he just blows up. Mm-hmm. Just straight up blows up, goes to the garage. His playoff hopes look like they're over as enough people are gonna get past him. And then, I don't know, not even 10 laps later.
That was right on the restart after Kyle blew up. Daniel
Suarez gets super loose, gets into Ricky Stenhouse, into the wall. Austin Dillon gets damaged. Tyler Reddick gets damaged. Alex Bowman gets damaged. Bowman and Stenhouse are out of the race. Bowman already locked in the spot, so he didn't. I don't even know if they could have. He also lost power steering, so I'm sure he was like, "Let's just leave."
Yes. I think he busted the radiator in that wreck.
He did. Yeah. Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick now on pit road, desperately trying to fix their cars because now Kyle got enough stage points. He's ahead of them. I probably think he was ahead of at least one of them already to begin with, but now he's ahead of both of them. So they need to run laps. They need to be out here, pass anybody that potentially falls out of the race, or Kyle's still going to make it through. Ultimately, Austin Dillon never gets back out there. Tyler Reddick gets back out there. Certainly at points looks like a moving chicane. Jeff Burton tore into him a little bit because he was. I know it's Bristol. Sure, it's not the easiest to be out of the way of, but he was kind of side drafting them. Like it felt very weird. And then the laps tick down. There are two guys, Austin Cindric, Tyler Reddick, that look like they have a chance to catch Kyle. Kyle's the last guy in. Chase Briscoe, solid race. He looks like he's easily going to advance. Suarez, even with his issues, looks like he was going to advance as long as he didn't wreck. Kyle wasn't going to be able to catch him because Kyle was already behind him. Kyle can't gain any positions. Kyle can actually only lose positions. One he ultimately lost to Bubba Wallace, which feels weird. I know the 2311 has come out and said, like, well, we're still maybe fighting for owner points
I buy
if
that.
we get eliminated.
I do buy it. Like, I get where you'd say this is dumb because you have a chance to keep the 18 in the playoffs, and
here's the thing:
for the brand.
If Toyota wanted them to, they would not have gone out there.
Mm-hmm.
If Toyota didn't want him to, and I think if this is Denny Hamlin or Christopher Bell that are about to be eliminated, Toyota doesn't let him out there. Just my take, but
listen, it's not crazy with how everything went down with Kyle and JGR and Toyota. It's not the craziest
because
thing
this was so much the expected thing that literally not a single reporter on Twitter even considered the idea that Bubba and Ty Gibbs would go back out there. And
they were talking on the broadcast about how bizarre it was that they were keeping the 45 out there and potentially costing Kyle spots. So I would agree with that.
Came up just 4 laps short of passing Kyle Busch as well. So do with that what you will. But anyway, attrition happens. A couple other guys fall out. Joey Logano's car effectively breaks. They lose a tire, then they lose the tire again. Oh, the Lugna issue? Where they did
one of
the tires was loose anyway.
Oh, well, that worked out for them.
Our inside source, I was talking to him earlier today, and he said that one of them was loose anyway.
So that worked out, even though it wasn't like
it didn't work out because they never tightened any cars. They sent the car back out there with a loose wheel, and then he had to come in again. Because the jackman saw the lug nut, which I think is 100% the right move, especially at Bristol. You're already screwed. You're already a couple laps down. Your race is over. Let's not make it worse by sending someone out there without a lug nut. So it looks like it fell off of the rear tire changer's belt or whatever. Rolls under the car so no one sees it. But then when he drops the jack, because I think Joey had a flat tire, so he had to come in. When he drops the jack, the lug rolls out from under the car, and the jackman sees it and stops them. Joey backs up, but then they look at the wheels and they see the lug's on both wheels. So then they send him back out there, and I'm sure the broadcast never talked about it because what did it matter? Joey's like 2-3 laps down, 4 laps down.
Locked in.
But it turns out one of those tires was loose anyway. So, but then he drops out. A couple other guys drop out, and despite losing a tire, sometime like lap 50 or whatever, Austin Cindric sneaks his way through, makes his way into the round of 12.
Yeah, I'm very happy he did that because I would have had a lot of people laughing at me with my pick for him to make the
a lot of late. Listen, there's almost no, unless someone made literally like 20 brackets, no one's bracket's perfect, right?
That's true.
Bowman and Byron both made it through. A lot of people had them both out. I had Byron making it through, and he's even surprised me with how he's done. Mm-hmm. You had them both out, and that wasn't the shocking thing. They had done nothing for 3 months, and it doesn't make sense for them to be like testing things because playoff points are so important.
Yeah, and that's man. We could be talking about this for a while, but I mean, you're 100% right. It's not like it was, before the playoff format. When you go back to the chase format, and you get bonus points for each win. I think that's really all it was at that point. I know the original chase, it was slotted by where you finished in the regular season, and then they opted to go with the wins with the bonus points. But I get experimenting in that situation.
Because also, right, like they weren't trying something they didn't work. I'm sure sometimes they expected whatever it was to work and for them to then win the race.
Yes.
But under this format now, you're not just giving up the point wins, you're giving up the stage wins. You're dropping further down in the regular season standings. Byron falling all the way to 10th, Bowman falling out of 10th. Didn't get any stage points. In a format now where the points don't just matter at the start of the playoffs, but every 3 races, they matter all over again.
Yeah, I just don't understand. If they were experimenting to that level, I don't get
explain it. But
if they end up missing the final 4 on points, and it's by a couple, you're gonna look at how they ran in the the whole middle of the year
before he completely fell apart. Byron was like second in points, I think.
Yeah,
Bowman wasn't quite that high, but he was still like top 5. And they just both slid out. Byron all the way to 10th. Like I said, Bowman out of the top 10. Another guy that, Suarez and Cindric certainly surprises for some people. I know you may have had Suarez out in the first round. I don't remember for sure.
I did. I wasn't confident with how they've were running, and he didn't have a great first round. So
he had a good enough one. That's all that matters.
Just enough.
I had them both making it through, but Suarez, I still think a little bit worse than I would expect. But I think the other big surprise, maybe even more than Byron or Bowman, because you always had these people that were like, oh man, like maybe they're just experimenting. In terms of anyone getting eliminated real quick, although a fascinating connection between them, but drivers eliminated being Harvick, Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch.
I know where you're going on this.
Well, first, I maintained even before it started, nobody being eliminated could shock me. And this is true still. Now, Harvick and Kyle both being eliminated, pretty damn surprising. But individually, no name on this list truly shocks me. Just because I thought it was entirely possible. I had Reddick in my final 4. So, that's certainly disappointing for me.
One prominent YouTuber who had him winning the championship.
Yes. But none of these are shocking to me just because I maintained even Chase being eliminated in the first round would not have been shocking, and I still stand by that. But it's fascinating. I believe there are only 4 full-time drivers anyway in the Cup Series that have or will race for RCR, or currently are, and all 4 of them eliminated in the first round.
Yep, all the ghosts.
I'm writing that right. There's no other full-time drivers in the series. Because Hemrick is the only other one that is even.
Yeah,
he was full-time, but he's not full-time in the Cup Series. So
yeah, I believe you are right. So yes, the ghosts of RCR, past, present, and future, all done in the playoffs. I feel bad for Richard because it sucks, and excluding the other 2, excluding Harvick and Kyle, just. Austin Dillon, I had him going into the second round. I thought, hey, if he has a good run at Darlington, he runs decent in the next 2 races, he's got a shot. And Tyler Reddick, with how he's been in the second half of the year, it seemed like they cleaned stuff up.
I'm not shocked he's eliminated, but I would have easily put money on him making it through. Like
Reddick,
yeah. I did not. I'm not shocked, but I certainly expected him. To still be
I wouldn't
there.
say I'm shocked either. I feel bad for Richard.
I will probably say the fact that Harvick, Reddick, and Busch all eliminated in the same round of 16, those 3 combined, I would probably qualify as shocking to me. I did not see that coming. I had Busch being eliminated. I had Dillon being eliminated, but Reddick and Harvick as well is pretty up there. I think honestly, to me, feel free to disagree. The most surprising thing in the round of 16, other than the fact that we had 3 non-playoff guys win races, Chase Briscoe moving on to the next round.
I just didn't see that one coming.
Just hasn't. There's a stat later on that I think that I have that I think illustrates just how not great the season has been. But hey, round of 12, he's still alive, and literally with Talladega, anybody could advance. Certainly anybody could be eliminated.
So looking at his stats, only.
Hold on,
oh, you want to hold off?
I haven't saved.
You haven't saved
for a different reason.
Right.
But no, we've talked about it before. He just aren't that good. He has speed at times, and then he doesn't finish it off. But yeah, no, not been definitely disappointing. Definitely disappointing.
Mm-hmm. I know one thing we haven't gotten to yet is Brad Keselowski led 109 laps.
Well,
It looked like he was going to win this race.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's tie in both conversation
Yes.
topics I know we have left with us.
All
One,
right.
Stuart Haas, they're getting better too. But
Mhm.
Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, I think we can all certainly agree there. We now see improvements in that team. Brad won stage one. Looked like he was going to have. He had the race pretty solidly unlocked. Was one of, and there might be another one. Let me look real quick. Yeah, there was one. I think it was one of two passes for the lead that happened under green. When Brad, I could be wrong. I know when Ryan Blaney got past Eric Almirola, that was under green. But when Brad started second behind Larson, ran down Larson and pulled away, one of two times that I know of that we saw passes for the lead. And then just was running, was cruising. There was still, a decent amount of laps to go. Cautions could come out for sure. But he loses a tire, and then very similar to Austin Cindric, no caution. And Brad was out there for a long time to get back around to it. So
It's not the first time they've done that to him this year
before we get to the overall point, or the other point involving the caution, great run for Brad. Great run for them. I'm not going to say they'll win a race this year, just because there's only 7 left. I would not be surprised if they did, even if it wasn't at Talladega. They will be playoff contenders next year.
Mm-hmm.
This was the best race for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing in literally a decade.
Yeah.
And they've already had other races this year that probably would have qualified for that as well, outside of, if you exclude like the wins at Dega, just because those obviously a win's a great race.
I would agree. I mean, Brad made it clear going to this team, he did not think this was going to be something that they could, fix overnight. I think there are some people that probably are a little disappointed with how they've run at times this year, but
I mean, you couldn't certainly qualify me as one of those.
But Buescher's having a great year, a career year for Chris Buescher. Huge win, a major win with the Bristol night race. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but at this point, I'd say it is a successful year for that team. So, year one, we still have 7 races left. It's good.
There are very few teams that I think winning a race doesn't automatically make it a successful year. Penske, Joe Gibbs, Hendrick, and Stuart Haas are probably about it.
Mm-hmm.
There are other ones that are certainly close, and I'm sure their expectations are more than a win. But so yeah, no, great year already for them. They're pointed up in the right direction. I expect this progress to continue. But
yeah, let's talk about the real
assuming you don't have any more comments on just the performance of the team here.
I don't.
I already mentioned Austin Cindric lost a tire, ran for a little while before he could get to pit road. Brad lost a tire, was stuck at the top of the track, and just had to run and run and run. Lost. Somehow ended up, I don't really know how, only ended up 1 lap down.
That's how good the car was.
So I don't know if after that there would have only been 1 caution. So I don't know if they weren't the lucky dog, but they might have taken the wave around.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but either way, got back 1 lap down, finished 13th still, but he gets stuck there. Cindric gets stuck, loses a tire. Blaney, Logano both lost tires, I'm pretty sure, without a caution at one point. Logano did for sure. Blaney's might have actually. I think it was unrelated, wasn't it?
The yellow wasn't for Blaney hitting the wall. It was for Almirola checking up and spinning out.
Because Blaney hit the wall, for the record. It was not.
Right.
But yeah. So, while leading the race, Christopher Bell loses a tire. And I don't think we want to talk about how quick they were to throw the caution when Ricky Stenhouse hit the wall at Texas. This might have been just as fast, if not faster.
It felt quicker. And since Bell was leading, you saw it happen. Not once did I think that should have been yellow. He got loose. The tire blew out, but he didn't hit the wall. He didn't spin out. I don't even think there was any smoke.
and I heard this argument, and I buy it. I don't think it's the right decision, but I buy it. The idea being, in terms of the traffic behind them, Bell posed a lot more risk than Brad did.
I don't know if I agree with that.
A lot of people at the track agree that was the case. I've mentioned this before, but I think it might be one of my new drums I beat, especially at tracks like this. During side by side, I don't really need to see the leader that much. Obviously, in this instance, it mattered since he blew a tire. Give me a wide out of the track.
Mm-hmm.
This track's only a mile and a half. You can give me a full track shot. Yeah, I don't want one at Michigan.
Not a mile and a half, half mile.
Half mile. I don't want one at Michigan. Mm-hmm. I don't even necessarily need somewhere one at a place like Darlington, but here, the Coliseum in particular, Martinsville, Richmond, like the track is small enough that you can give us that. And I think it's easy to lose grasp of how small the track is. So I think it's beneficial of it. But either way, if we had that, maybe we would have fixed this. Either way, though, I think at this point, like it feels wrong that once leader loses a tire, doesn't get loose at all, right? Goes up the wall. But just because the other one got a little loose, maybe it was in front of other cars, boom, caution immediately. And it ended Brad Keselowski's chance to win a race and preserved Christopher Bell's. He only lost one spot. They lost more on pit road after that. But
Denny Hamlin, that's another one that they threw the yellow for when he got up in the wall. He had a tire go down. I think that was before Kyle Busch's problem. He didn't hit the wall that hard. It was probably the same, if maybe even less than what Brad did.
Quite frankly, at Bristol, I would have no problem with this guy got loose or this guy hit the wall. The guy lost a tire, caution every time. I would have no problem with it. This track, things happen so fast. Drivers come out around the corner. You think a guy's going to get out of the way. He doesn't. I'd have no problem with every lost tire. Every time someone not, scraped the wall, but actually smacked the wall pretty hard. If that was just a caution, no problem with it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And instead,
I did hear people say that yellow for Bell was really for debris. I find that very coincidental if that was the case, because that yellow came immediately when he started sliding.
On Twitter, but I don't think that that's actually what NASCAR ever said.
That's what it's listed on the caution on Racing Reference, is debris in turn 2.
That is not Christopher Bell.
Oh, you're right. That was the yellow before. My mistake. It's just quite slow on the backstretch.
Which is accurate.
Which is that accurate? Because he was really slow on the backstretch.
He was pretty slow. I mean,
they threw that yellow before he got out of the turn, though.
Oh well, no, sure, yeah. But I mean, that's what they could use. He was slow on the backstretch, or he was about to be slow on the backstretch.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to put the reason thought he might cause crash. Like,
at the end of the day, I think that was a garbage yellow. I'm with you. If you get up in the wall,
here's the thing: is I don't even think that was a garbage yellow. I'm more mad that Brad, Austin Cindric, other people, I'm sure Logano, did not get a caution in a very similar, almost exactly the same situation. I have no problem with that being a yellow as long as the other ones are yellows.
I actually think under no circumstance should Christopher Bell have been a yellow. He did not spin. He did not get up in the wall. The car was not dropping debris. That's the one that should not have been a yellow flag. I think all the other ones you listed, where they get up in the wall, you have a case for a yellow. Christopher Bell, under no circumstance, in my opinion, should have been a yellow flag in that race. That's how strongly I feel about that, because there's nothing there that, in my opinion, led to a caution.
Like I said, I have no problem with all these being cautions at Bristol. Things happen so fast. I mean, not that it would have helped in the caution, because it would have been too quick, but I mean, Larson, not that far behind Bell, could have easily cleaned him out. Again, caution wouldn't have stopped that, but I have no problem with them being cautioned just because of how quick stuff happens. But
I think the other thing that rubs me the wrong way on this, and there's no way to fix this, because I think the rule was, it was acted properly here, is that Bell is second after that yellow flag comes out, and that's just.
Yeah, but I mean, how else is he not? He maintained his spot.
You can't. I agree 100%. It's just it's kind of crappy that the guy who brings out the yellow is still second.
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's that crappy.
I don't think there's anything they could have done. I think it was.
I don't think it's crappy, except for the fact that, again, he not only gets Stanley lap, gets in second, Brad leading the race winds up what I assume was 2 laps down at the time. Like, that's the part that's crappy, that because of the caution, Bell not just had a chance to win because he was on the lead lap, literally went into the pit road second. Brad, 2 laps down. That's my issue with it. At the end of the day, he didn't spin. He kept it off the wall. So I don't think he should do anything other than get second. It just sucks that other drivers in similar situations lost a lot more because a caution didn't happen to come out.
I would say too that last yellow for Bell. We touched on Kevin Harvick a little bit here, but speaking of like
that was, I mean, no, he wasn't the only one, but yeah, Harvick loses the tire.
Was the one that hurt the most. He was the one that hurt the most.
Sure, because he could have potentially won the race without it. But he loses a tire, might lose Childers for 4 weeks. That one I'm less sure of.
Yeah, that one I think
that
it's
one's
still
a
kind
lot
of in
closer
the box.
That I would not be.
With how they've been ruling it, I wouldn't be shocked if they got off.
He was out of the box, but it was really close. Denny also had a bad, same thing. They didn't lose the tire at any point, I don't think. I can't remember. Maybe he did too. But same thing. Same. Luce had to come back in, had to back up. So also,
lost lap when they were fixing that. That last round of pit stops was awful for a couple of teams.
Yeah, I thought they were going to lose a lap because they were on pit road for a long time. But
Harvick, he went from possibly being able to win that race to his playoffs over.
If it's any credit for him, he would not have won that race. No one was going to get past Chris Buescher. It just was so, unless another caution came out, you just couldn't pass.
Yeah.
And his tires were a good bit older than Chase's, and all Chase could do was get it like 4 or 5 tenths, and that was in traffic.
I think that's the first time we even said Chase Elliott this entire episode.
I mean, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Kyle Larson, 3 cars in the top 5, 300 cars in the top 5. Bowman could have been. He was running in like the top 10, not at the time of the accident, just because of he pit, I'm pretty sure. Already had actually lost power steering anyway. But yeah, but a lot of speed from them. At this point, I don't think they could put 4 cars in the top 8 or in the round of 8. I don't know if I'd be shocked at this point, just to be honest. But
no, it's we've already said it with the other series, but it's gonna come down to what happens at Talladega.
Another race, real quick, much more similar to Darlington than Kansas in this regard. Top 18, just what is that? 5, 6, 8 playoff drivers, which means we had 8 19th or worse.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you finished in the top 20 in this race, you moved on to the next round. Everyone that was eliminated, I guess, except for Harvick, but that's because he had a horrendous 2 races.
So with all the problems and stuff, this felt like a race from the 80s or the 90s. I know we talked about this as a possibility earlier in the season, and we hadn't really seen anything like this recently. But these cars, we don't know what the problems were.
Don't have a problem with mechanical failures. Tire failures, when they happen like this, suck. When we had been a while, we've had them with this car before, but the last time I really remember it is Kansas in the spring. First time I remember happening with the Fords, but yeah, power steering issues for a couple guys. I guess 4 that we know of. Actually, I'm pretty sure Briscoe also lost power steering way early in the race.
Lap 4. So the fact that he was able to hang on there and get a top
494 laps, finished 2 laps down in 14th.
Yeah.
Hung in there, got a top 15, moved on to the next round. Yeah. A couple other guys that are not playoff guys that I want to highlight, and this is the one I wanted to save the Chase Briscoe stat for. AJ Allmendinger is 13 races in the 16 so far this year. This is his 5th top 10, and I'm pretty sure this is his 3rd top 10 in a row. He doesn't race it every week. But in terms of his races that he's run, Indy Road Course 7th, Watkins Glen 2nd, Bristol 7th. Also had a top 10 at Road America, but also had one at Gateway. Just very consistent, 5 top 10s, which is more than Brad Keselowski, Chase Briscoe, a playoff driver. I believe he has 4. Cole Custer, Justin Haley, his teammate. Harrison Burton, Ty Dillon, and Todd Gilliland. All of them have 5 or fewer than 5. He has the same amount as Ricky Stenhouse, who has 5. So I still think, especially with the schedule, and I get why he wouldn't. Even without a win, although you might need a win to get to the playoffs for the conceivable future. We'll find out next year. But
yeah, I know we're definitely going to be talking about that.
AJ could certainly contend for a top 16 in points pretty easily, I think.
Yeah.
Other
with all
guy,
the road courses, I would expect him to probably make it.
The other guy, just because every time he gets top 10, doesn't have very often. Cole Custer finished 8th, third top 10 of the year. But I will give him credit. All of them have come since Atlanta 2, which was just 11 races ago. Which, God, that feels like an eon ago. But just 11 races ago, 3 top 10s. More speed than they've shown in the first half at this point. It certainly looks like he'll be in the car next year. It's hard to imagine a scenario where he's not. I guess Priest takes over the ride, but that seems
unlikely.
Pretty unlikely since Priest's money is mostly Harvick money.
I definitely get the feeling you're going to see Priest full-time next year. I just don't know if it's going to be the Truck or the Xfinity Series.
Still think Cole Custer absolutely should have a different crew chief, but I've beat that drum enough. I'll continue to beat it, just don't need to go over it.
Yeah.
Before we look at the bets, anyone else you wanna highlight?
No, I mean,
I just real quick, and actually I'll throw one. Corey LaJoie, 15th, another great run for them. But the fact that Michael McDowell finished 11th and it's almost not even noteworthy is a testament to how good of a season he's had.
Yeah, no, solid for McDowell, top 15 finish. Again, don't really feel the need to bring it up. He's got 11 top 10s this year. Just a crazy good year for Michael McDowell and that team. Justin Haley, decent run, finished 12th. You already mentioned Corey LaJoie. Harrison Burton, 16th. Cody Ware, 17th. Todd Gilliland, 18th. With everything that happened in this race, not too surprising. Actually, I take that back. Harrison Burton finishing 16th after all the issues he had in the first 100 laps. That's actually pretty crazy.
3 times?
Yeah, in the wall, the tire down or something. He had problem after problem.
I will say Cody Ware, this wasn't like a crazy bunch of cautions for a Bristol race anyway. I feel like what is effectively 9, if you remove the stages for a Bristol race, isn't anything crazy. So I will say Cody Ware being only 3 laps down, decently solid. Solid.
Not bad for him. But that's really it in terms of the guys that we would highlight. I mean, everybody else there in the back, I think we already touched on, and that's because they had problems. So not a ton of surprises in terms of people way near the front, but that's Cup Series is a lot harder to do. It's also a lot harder to hit bets sometimes, and I know you were just about to bring that up. How did we look over the weekend? I know we got some winners in the Xfinity and Truck Series, but how did everything turn out?
Well, in the Truck Series, you are the one that I bestowed the ability to pick Ty Majeski, who did ultimately win the race. I picked John Hunter, who did not win the race. For our value picks, I went with Parker Kligerman, who got a third. Mm-hmm. So very solid for him. You went with Matt DiBenedetto, who I don't even remember what happened. He's kind of invisible.
Didn't show up. Yeah.
For the head-to-heads, you picked Majeski over Enfinger, which obviously happened since Majeski won. Although Enfinger did finish, I believe, 4th. Mm-hmm. I picked Christian Eckes over Ben Rhodes, which also hit. So those are 2 good ones there. For the Xfinity Series, you picked, I believe, Ty Gibbs.
No, I went with Gregson.
Oh, you did go with Gregson? Okay. I had a typo, so I couldn't tell which one it was.
Yes,
so
I did with Gregson.
You went with Gregson, which obviously hit.
Yep.
I went with Sam Mayer, which didn't hit, but he did get a top 5. So for the value picks, you went with Riley Herbst, and I went with Sheldon Creed. I mean, hey, Sheldon Creed looked like he could win.
I would say those were both good value picks. I mean, Creed did show speed, and Herbst got a top 5.
Herbst got a top 5. So for our head-to-heads, though, not as good. Although you actually hit yours. You had Herbst over Hemrick, which did, I believe, end up hitting. I don't believe Hemrick finished in the top 5. I don't have it in front of me.
No, he had problems. I don't know where he finished off the top of my head.
Did he have problems? I just don't even remember his existence, to be honest.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He finished 20th 2 laps down. So
so he had some kind of problem, I guess. I just don't know what they were. I had Sam Mayer over Brandon Jones, which, hey, Sam Mayer finished 4th. Fortunately for me, Brandon Jones finished 2nd. In the Cup Series, you picked Harvick to win. I picked Kyle Larson. Neither of those ended up panning out. for our value pick winner. You had Eric Jones, who had he just kind of was. I think he had an issue too. I know he got into Ty Dillon, just kind of was not a factor issues. I had Ryan Blaney, who, hey, he was leading when his tire went down. So
yeah, he looked like he had a car capable of winning that race. Unfortunately, the tires did not hold up, and I know Brad was saying in Victory Lane, because he was the winning owner, that the problem with those tires were they just went, and that was the thing that knocked him on his. Like they just no wear or anything. It
seems pretty similar to what we've seen earlier in the year. The running theory, I don't know if anyone's actually like literally confirmed this, but is that these tires actually get damaged when their air pressure is low at the early in the run, but they don't really give any indication that they're going to go. They just go. We saw that with several drivers. There's no indication. They don't seem to. They're not racing any differently. They're just, and it just goes. So, for Group A, it was Hamlin, Larson, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Busch. I went with Kyle Larson. You went with Denny Hamlin, but it was Chase Elliott that finished second, so he wins that group. Group B, Christopher Bell, Kevin Harvick, Tyler Reddick, and Ross Chastain. Pretty solid day for three of these guys. I believe Harvick, Chastain, and Bell all in the top 10. But it was Bell that finished, I believe, fourth.
Yep.
Took home the win for Group B, which is a victory for me. Group C, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr. Well, two of these cars didn't finish the race in Logano and Truex. Blaney lost the tire really on. So by default, William Byron, which was Brandon's pick, does get the victory here. I went with Ryan Blaney. And Group D, Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, Chase Briscoe was actually Chase Briscoe in what wound up being a war of attrition. The guy who lost his power steering on lap 4 that takes the victory here. Bubba Bowman did not finish the race, and Daniel Suarez was on the accident, finished like 20th or something.
Bubba did finish, but
that's true. Bubba did finish. He was just like 90-some laps down.
Yeah,
but you're right. Bubba did finish. Just didn't finish where he was running, which was in the top 5 at the time of his accident.
Yeah. But that's a solid week, especially with everything that happened. We got a couple hits there, and I would say the truck and the Xfinity series definitely were better because we got some winners. But all in all, I'd say the betting went pretty good. I know the fantasy side, you had a pretty good night. I had a decent night, so that was good. Those teams look pretty solid, and we'll be back at it next week. I don't know how much though, because Texas. That's something I'm not looking forward to, I guess you could say. I'm much rather hoping we could just speed things up and get to Talladega in a couple weeks, even though we probably won't be doing a lot of betting there either because Talladega. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bernie Breakdown. We're going to be back to preview Texas. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know yet. We'll see after the race how that goes. But we'll be back to set everything up for that. Xfinity and Cup Series will be racing there this coming weekend, and should be a good time. First race of the playoffs for the Xfinity Series, and the first race of round of 12 for the Cup. So until next time, guys, thanks for listening. Brandon Monroe here. Thanks for listening to the Bernie Breakdown. Remember to keep listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform. And remember to follow us at Bernie Breakdown on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all of our other social media platforms.